Two voices called from outside. Mu Ting Er and Mu Yue, both of whom were bound like caterpillars, were tossed in front of Mu Qing. His two daughters that initially had flower and jade-like appearances already looked inhuman. Their previously glossy hair had turned dry and messy. Their faces looked yellowish and were thin and weak. It was obvious that they were experiencing an inhumane life. Moreover, everything was caused by that bitch Ru Yue. Mu Qing boiled in hatred, but what could he do? Even if it wasn't Madame Shanyu, he still wasn't able to deal with that girl. Who are you? Who allowed you to barge into my Mu family? Mu Yue shouted crazily towards Madame Shanyu, as her inhumanly thin and weak body shuddered slightly. Madame Shanyu coldly chuckled. You dare to shout at me? How shall I treat you? Should I disfigure you or toss you into a horde of magical beasts? I think the latter would suit you better. With your current appearance, there wouldn't be any difference if your face were disfigured. Mu Yue shuddered violently and, with fear-filled eyes, she exclaimed, No. Look at yourself. I only scared you a little and you have already shrieked. I haven't thought about how to deal with you. Could it be that you want me to feed you to those vicious magical beasts? It's a pity that those beasts would be too lazy to eat you, as the two of you don't have any flesh. Mu Yue really hoped she could lose consciousness, as that would be better than being tortured mentally or physically by her. Daddy, who are these people? Why have they come to our Mu family? Mu Qing's fear was similar to Mu Yue's, but he forcefully stabilized his emotions and performed introductions. They are from the Shao family of Shang domain. That person is Madame Shanyu. Shao family of Shang domain? Mu Ting Er couldn't help but scuttle backwards after hearing that. She remembered that Xiao Min was from the Shao family of Shang domain. It was due to her coaxing that Xiao Min had gone to seek the Ghost King in Mu Yue. Following that, after Xiao Min had been defeated by Mu Yue, the Ghost King had scrapped her cultivation. If it hadn't been for her, that wouldn't have happened. Thus, even though she was jealous and hated Mu Yue's power, she had been worried that the Shao family would come after her for this matter. Could it be that they had come to her Mu family to avenge Xiao Min? This young miss seems to have something to say, said Madame Shanyu with a cold smile. She had caught the expressions in Mu Ting Er's eyes. Mu Ting Er's face instantly paled, as she gritted her teeth and said, Madam, please clarify, as I don't have anything to say. Is that so? Madame Shanyu looked at Mu Ting Er with a smile that was not a smile. Husband, she isn't willing to tell us. What shall we do? Didn't Qing say that she wanted a toy? How about we bring her back as a toy for Qing to play after we break her limbs, cut out her tongue, and dig out her eyes? Xiao Tianyu embraced her and said with a tender gaze, Whatever Yue says. Madame Shanyu smirked and shifted her gaze back to Mu Ting Er. Tell us what you want to say. He. If you miss this chance, you will become my daughter's toy. My daughter chopped her other toy into 8 large pieces, so I need to find another one for her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 174, Mother and Daughter Reunion Part 7. Chapter 174, Mother and Daughter Reunion Part 7. Mu Ting Er had never been as frightened before as she was today. The woman's words viciously struck her head and made her shudder. Madam, it is my fault, as I made young Mistress Xiao curious about the Ghost King from my words. But I didn't expect that she would be bullied to that extent by Mu Yue. I only had good intentions. Mu Ting Er's tear-filled face looked so pitiful that it would normally attract tender affection towards her. But Madame Shangyu's expression slowly darkened instead after hearing her words. Ting Er? Mu Qing's expression changed drastically, but it was obvious that it was already too late to stop her speech. If Mu Yue was Madame Shanyu's daughter, the outcome would be unimaginable. I didn't expect you to tell me everything just by scaring you. My daughter doesn't even dare to kill anyone, so don't even mention having a weird fetish. Madame Shanyu smiled slightly, but her beautiful eyes was ice cold. So it was your doing that made Xiao Min want to snatch Yuer's man. Your man didn't want you, so you were jealous that Yuer has a man who was devoted to only her. You also envied her fiancé's perfections and outstandingness. Tell me, how should I punish the entire Mu family? When Madame Shang Yu had dispatched people to search for her daughter's location, she had naturally also investigated her matters over all these years. It, of course, contained the information of how the Ghost King had abandoned his pretense for his beloved and fought against the experts of the Saintess sect. This made her, as Mu Ruyu's mother, happy that her daughter had found such a good partner. Furthermore, her husband and she would have only each other for their entire lives. Her daughter's husband definitely must also have only her daughter in his life. No matter what, this Ghost King had fit the criteria. How could Madame Shang Yu not be enraged when such a matter had occurred in the 2 months when she was wholeheartedly cleaning up the family? She had known that Xiao Min was despotic, but she hadn't expected that she would try to steal someone else's fiancé. Suddenly, there was the sound of footsteps coming over. Feeling that familiar aura, Madame Shang Yu's body stiffened slightly. She turned around and a familiar face entered her sight. Yuer seemed to have grown a little taller after a few months. Madame Shang Yu's eyes reddened. Just as she wanted to say something, she swallowed her words back into her throat. She didn't know what she should say and just looked at Mu Ryu with reddened eyes. Madam! Mu Ruyu's face brightened as she smiled, hastening her steps to stand before Madame Shang Yu. What brings you here? Madame Shang Yu's voice was slightly choked with sobs and her eyes brimmed with tears. Yuer, why are you so distant with me after not seeing me for just a few months? You previously didn't call me this. She really wanted to look at her daughter's appearance to the finest detail. Her daughter that had been away from her for so many years. Foster mother. Mu Ryu smiled. No matter what happened with Xiao Min, Madame Shang Yu at least treated her with genuine love. Madame Shang Yu could no longer bear with it as she wailed and hugged Mu Ryu. It was as though she were reliving all of her fears and worries that had accumulated over the years in this one moment. The daughter that she thought was impossible to reunite with was standing before her now. This feeling was really great. Yuer, my Yuer, mother has missed you so much. I've really missed you a lot. Mu Ryu was slightly confused. We seem to have been separated for only a few months, but... Madame Shang Yu just hugged Mu Ryu tightly. It made her incredibly jubilant that she could get back what she had lost for so long. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 175, Mother and Daughter Reunion Part 8. Chapter 175, Mother and Daughter Reunion Part 8. Mother. Madame Shang Yu interrupted Mu Ruyu's word. Yuer, do you still remember those words I had previously said to you? That I once had a biological daughter who went missing and that I have been searching for her location all these years? Now, I have found out that you are my biological daughter. Her words were like a thunder, causing Mu Ruyu's body to stiffen. Madame Shang Yu was her blood-related mother? How was this possible? Yet, this warmth was just so genuine. It was as though she'd returned to Huaxia, to a family filled with memories and emotions. Is this the truth? Mu Ruyu's voice trembled slightly. Madame Shang Yu released the young girl in her embrace as she looked meticulously over Mu Ruyu's appearance. How much had her precious daughter suffered all these years? She'd even nearly lost her life and was humiliated by slag men and girls. How could this not break her heart as a mother? Now, Madame Shang Yu finally understood why she had kept thinking about this young girl before. She was her biological daughter. This made her feel as though she'd regained a treasure. Yuer, you are the daughter mother has searched bitterly for. My daughter had actually returned to my side earlier, but mother just didn't know. You suffered so much all these years. Mother will definitely not let anyone hurt you after you return home. Due to all of this excitement, Madame Shang Yu was slightly choked up with tears flowed down her beautiful eyes. She raised her hand to cover her face, allowing her tears to seep through the gaps of her fingers. Ru Yue pursed her lips as she looked at the stirred Madame Shang Yu. She still hadn't gotten her head around this matter. You err. Xiao Tianyu walked forward to embrace Ru Yue's shoulders and used his large hand to caress her head. With a smile on his handsome face, he continued, "Come home with mother and father. We have searched for you all these years. Your elder brother and younger sister are waiting for your return at home." Home? Ru Yue lifted her head to look at this man's handsome appearance. She wasn't the Ru Yue of this world and was just a lingering soul from another world. Yet, why did their words resonate with so much warmth to her? Why was she so reluctant to lose the warmth of his large hand? Father, mother. Ru Yue leaped into Madame Shang Yu's embrace and hugged her tightly, her voice quivering slightly. Let her be selfish for just this moment. She didn't want to give up this warmth. Xiao Tianyu's expression became gentle as he looked upon the sobbing mother and daughter. He tightly embraced these two people, whom he would love his entire life, from behind. One was his one and only wife in this life, the other his long-lost daughter. No! This is impossible! Mu Shui yelled out with an extremely crazed expression, exclaiming, "How can that bitch Ru Yue be the daughter of Madame Shang Yu? This Madame Shang Yu must be a fake. She must have been called over by Ru Yue to deceive the world." Mu Qing's heart chilled after hearing Mu Shui's words. Usually, he didn't mind if she was out of control and arrogant, but weren't the people before them from the Xiao family of Shang domain? The status of Madame Shang Yu was extremely noble. If someone were to impersonate her, it would quickly enter the ears of the Xiao family. Hence, there really wouldn't be anyone that would dare to impersonate Madame Shang Yu in this world. Wasn't Mu Shui seeking her own death through her words? If you find any errors, ads pop-up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 176, I Won't Let You Off Even If I Become a Ghost Part 1. Chapter 176, I Won't Let You Off Even If I Become a Ghost Part 1. What did you say? Xiao Tianyu's expression darkened, a layer of killing intent displayed on his handsome face. He turned his head toward the crazed Mu Shui with a ruthless smile. He lifted his hand lightly. A sharp wind unknowingly arose and struck toward Mu Shui. She was sent flying backwards and struck against a wall, blood instantly gushing from the back of her head. A jade appeared in Xiao Tianyu's hand. It was the jade that symbolized the young head of the Xiao family. He looked coldly at the pale Mu Shui with killing intent on his face and said, "Look carefully at this. We are not imposters of the Xiao family. We, the Xiao family, do not impersonate people, yet, there is someone else that had impersonated being a lifesaver." Xiao Tianyu turned his head toward Mu Ting Er and saw that her body visibly shudder. It is such a pity that the head of the Mu family was kept in the dark all these years. If it wasn't for us searching for our daughter, we wouldn't have investigated these matters. The so-called lifesaver from the past was just someone that had created a scene and acted accordingly in order to give his daughter a good future. The man's lips curled up into a smile, but Mu Ting Er's body shuddered instead. An intense feeling of fear permeated her heart. Mu Qing's body stiffened as he looked with disbelief at the daughter he dearly doted upon for so many years. Mu Ting Er, what is going on? He gritted his teeth, his voice filled with intense hatred. Mu Qing had indeed done things that wasn't good, but he was a rare, filial son that respected and loved his mother dearly. They had gone on a scenic trip and met with mountain bandits around 16 years ago. If it wasn't for Mu Ting Er's blood-related father who helped them, his mother would have died at that time. It was precisely due to this that he doted upon and loved Ting Er. It was also due to this incident that after his mother returned to the manor, her mentality became unstable due to the excess scare and fright. She had sustained this for 2 years before passing away. Who knew that all of that was just Mu Ting Er's act? It was laughable that for such a daughter he'd given Ru Yue up and abandoned the chance to be associated with the Shao family of Shang Domain. How could he not loathe her? Mu Ting Er, give me an explanation. Mu Qing clenched his fists tightly, the vein at his temple bulging out slightly. Father. Mu Ting Er's body shuddered before she bit her lip and looked at Mu Qing pitifully. Father, I didn't. I really didn't. This is... Are you trying to say that it is the Shao family who are lying or had investigated wrongly? A mocking smile slowly appeared on Mu Qing's face. With a hate-filled gaze, he said word by word, the Shao family is not as simple as you think. They don't need to speak this kind of lie, nor would they investigate wrongly. Mu Ting Er, it is all you, this bitch's fault that I fell to this stage today. This was right, it was all due to this bitch. If it wasn't for her, Ru Yue would have already married Yi Tianfeng and wouldn't hate him to his bones. The Shao family would have also thanked him for helping them raise their daughter for 16 years. But now, everything was ruined due to Mu Ting Er. Pa! A crisp slap struck viciously on Mu Ting Er's yellowish and thin face. But Mu Qing wasn't appeased, so he lifted his leg to kick her a couple of times. It was as though he were relieving his anger on her. The pitiful Mu Ting Er didn't have any chance of fighting back and could only grit her teeth and bear Mu Qing's oppressive beating. She hadn't legitimately gained her identity as the young mistress of the Mu family, so did she have to return it today? She couldn't stand it. Ru Yue leaped to become the daughter of Madame Shangyu while she had to suffer such mistreatment. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 177, I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. Part 2. Chapter 177, I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. Part 2. Ru Yue, I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. Mu Ting Er shouted with fury at Ru Yue. Her heart was filled with a hatred that made her body shudder. She just wanted to shred to pieces the young girl in Madame Shangyu's embrace. Why? Why was Ru Yue so fortunate? First, she had gotten rid of her trash physique. She then gained the acknowledgement of Grandmaster Wu Yu of the Qingyun sect. The publicly recognized idiot Ghost King became so outstanding. And now, she became the young mistress of the main branch of the Shao family of Shang Domain. What about her? She was dumped by her beloved man and tortured by him for what she said to Xiaoming. Currently, she'd even lost her soul identity. She really couldn't stand it. Become a ghost? Madame Shangyu laughed. Her laugh looked extremely beautiful and elegant, but it sent Mu Ting Er's heart trembling instead. She looked with astonishment at this Madame Shangyu, who displayed a wide smile. I initially wanted to give you a quick death, but I won't give you any chances since you said that. I will make it so that you can't even become a ghost. There is a method in the Shao family that can forcefully extract the soul of the person and use a kind of flame to burn it. The soul will then be completely destroyed. Do you think you still can become a ghost after that? Mu Ting Er's face paled to the point where it didn't have a trace of blood. Her eyes gradually widened with fear as she shrieked with all her might, No. I don't want that. You don't want? Why should I listen? I am a very superstitious person. You won't let my daughter off even if you become a ghost? In that case, I won't give you the chance to become a ghost. I want to see how you will harm my daughter then. Madame Shangyu's face had a layer of frost as she looked coldly at the vigorously shivering Mu Ting Er. At this moment, Mu Ting Er truly regretted it. If she'd known about this, she wouldn't have said anything. It was really a pity that even if she regretted it, she couldn't salvage anything from it. Hubby, I've heard that there is something called rumors in the outside world. Even though rumors aren't scary, I don't want rumors to spread. If not, some calculative people would definitely spread that my daughter killed her own father. Thus, I want you to dispatch people to lock these three up in a cage and parade them through the street in order to let the people know all of the mistakes they had done these past years. We will also let them know that Ru Yue is our Shao family's daughter. Madame Shang Yu's face was like ice, and she gave a cold smile. The light in Mu Qing's eyes gradually dimmed as he'd lost his final chance. You don't worry. Leave this to me. I won't let anyone bully our daughter. Xiao Tianyu looked at his beloved woman and said this tenderly. Yet, he wasn't as gentle toward others. Didn't you hear the madam's instructions? Why aren't you tying all of them up then? Lock them in a cage and parade them through the streets. Spread the news to everybody about what they had done to my daughter all these years. Understood, young head and madam. The crowd acknowledged their order and pulled up those three before them. Mu Qing was resigned to his fate, but his daughters weren't satisfied with such treatment, so they struggled against the hold of these people. Yet, they still wasn't able to escape the fate of being paraded in the streets, no matter how much they struggled. Regret? If there was a medicine to treat their regret, then what use would the police be of then? When Ru Yue saw the father and daughter trio being dragged away, a mocking smile appeared on her face. The outcome of the Mu family was a little out of her expectations, but the punishment dealt by Madame Shang Yu was satisfying. She wouldn't need to personally punish them then. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 178, A Pair of Alluring Purple Eyes Part 1. Chapter 178, A Pair of Alluring Purple Eyes Part 1. The streets were busy as people pointed at a passing prisoner cart. Everyone's eyes were filled with clear ridicule. We already knew how terrible the head of the Mu family treated his biological daughter. I didn't expect that she wasn't even his biological daughter. It's no wonder why he was so cruel. Even if she wasn't his daughter, anyone would still love a tender and cute baby girl, right? It's just that the Mu family was so inhumane. One of the younger sisters snatched the eldest sister's fiancé and the father helped in it, even allowing them to have a relationship without marriage. The treatment between those two who weren't even his daughters is just so different. Mu Qing is really merciless and ruthless. There is also Mu Yue. She planned to ruin her elder sister's chastity due to fancying the Ghost King. Those two daughters aren't any good. Ru Yue initially wasn't a trash but was poisoned by Mu Ting Er when she was young. She regained her ability to cultivate due to an expert's help in detoxifying her. Mu Ting Er was already so venomous at such a tender age. Of course she would still be a harbinger of disaster when she grew up. It's no wonder why His Highness the Crown Prince didn't want her in the end. Don't just speak such depressing things. Even though Ru Yue was tricked, good things happened to her after she suffered. Not only did she get a good partner in life, she also reunited with her parents. Moreover, she is now the young mistress of the main branch of such a powerful family. On the other hand, Mu Ting Er and Mu Yue have such a terrible end. As expected, the heavens are always watching. One will get retribution for what one does. These words of mockery were like sharp thorns that pierced the hearts of the father and daughter trio. How great had they previously been? They have now become prisoners today. Satisfaction? That's right, they weren't satisfied at all. What nonsense are you all saying? Mu Yue lifted her head and shouted, even if Ru Yue wasn't my father's daughter, father is still her foster father. Isn't a person who abandons someone that nurtured her for 16 years inhumane? Mu Yue was in a sorry state as her hair was let down and lay unkempt on her shoulders. She looked just like a crazy woman. The crowd burst into laughter. You have all done so many things to her during these 16 years. You had beaten, scolded, even nearly forced her death. Lastly, you even planned to ruin her chastity. What right did you have to make her pity you then? She was already lenient on behalf of those 16 years to not chop you up blade after blade. Mu Xue's nails sunk deeply into her palm. She bit her pale white lip tightly and droplets of blood entered her mouth. What else could she do other than loathe Ru Yue? Ru Yue, if I gain another life, I will cut you into countless pieces. While Mu Xue gritted her teeth in hatred, the people beneath the prisoner cart mercilessly threw rocks toward the three of them. Central Region. Flowers were in abundance and blossomed like a brocade. Inside a mountain valley was a man in white robes and with white hair sitting within its white flowers. His snow-white robe fluttered in the breeze and carried a flowery scent with it. This scene was so beautiful that it didn't seem real. The man was like an exiled immortal, and his white robes couldn't be stained with the dirt of the mundane world. He possessed a beauty that could make any gender gasp when they looked at him. If Ru Yue were here, she would have recognized this man. It was Bai Zhe, the one who had pulled her into a dimension without cause or reason as he said those illogical words. Even his brows were white. While this made him look eccentric, it was also really good looking. Suddenly, the man opened his eyes and shifted his gaze toward another set of clouds. He sighed gently. His memories have already started to recover. The central region will no longer be peaceful. If you find any errors, ads pop-up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 179, A Pair of Alluring Purple Eyes Part 2. Chapter 179, A Pair of Alluring Purple Eyes Part 2. Saintess Sect. A foot stepped into the sect towards the clamoring sounds. It was a man. He wore a silver robe with an enormous silver dragon embroidered on it. It looked amazing beneath the moonlight. The man had a silver mask on his face, making it impossible to see his appearance. When this man stepped in from outside, however, he made people feel a pressure that was so great that they were unable to breathe. Nobility. That's right. This man radiated nobility and elegance. Such a domineering nobility was incomparable to other nobles. Furthermore, this man possessed a pair of alluring purple eyes. The color seemed like the most prestigious color in the world. It enhanced his appearance to the point where he was breathtaking. No wind blew, yet that man's silver robe fluttered slightly. When the purple eyes swept across the crowd, the formless pressure from him made a couple of the people pale and kneel to the ground before him. You are finally here. A low and hoarse voice was heard from before him. The sect leader of the Saintess sect walked hastily over with the support of a bunch of girls. His carving-like handsome face displayed a cold smile. It looked even more sinister with the scar on his left face. This smile could have made anyone tremble with fear. The silver-robed man, however, stayed emotionless. It was as though he wasn't stirred up at all by the sight of the other man. Who on earth are you? Why do you constantly go against my Saintess sect? When the sect leader lifted his head to look at the purple-eyed man, he asked, Are you Ghost King Yi Wuchen? He'd fought against Yi Wuchen 2 months ago. Who could have known that the crafty Yi Wuchen would flee? He'd escaped without a trace despite his pursuit. How could he be satisfied if he couldn't kill Yi Wuchen? Recently, his subordinates had suggested capturing Ru Yue to threaten Yi Wuchen, but he restricted them as he didn't like to use such despicable, unmanly acts. Yi Wuchen probably knew he didn't like to use a girl to threaten him, so he'd fought against him. Yet, his subordinate then suggested a great idea, which was to release news that he desired to capture that girl. Yi Wuchen could be counted as a love fanatic, just like his father. Even if he knew that these rumors couldn't be so easily believed, he'd still brought the people of his ghost manor here. Yi Wuchen was then injured in that fight while his own Saintess sect had lost many of its elites. After that battle, there wasn't any trace of Yi Wuchen until this man appeared. This man's appearance resulted in the destruction of the branch sects of the Saintess sect, and now he was here threatening his life. He suspected that this man was Yi Wuchen. Yet, Yi Wuchen clearly hadn't possessed such tyrannical strength. More importantly, a person's appearance could be changed easily with pills, including their hair. However, the sole thing that pills hadn't yet achieved in changing were the eyes. Yi Wuchen's eyes had been black, but this man's was undeniably purple. Thus, even if he were the sect leader of the Saintist sect, he didn't know who this man was and why he hated him to such an extent. Must he force him to his death every time? Had he killed his parents or snatched his woman, thus resulting in him becoming his nemesis? The sect leader truly grieved. While his opponent wanted to kill him, he didn't even know the reason. A strong aura burst forth before him and the sect leader hastily used his own aura to resist. Hon! He retreated a couple steps back from the shockwave of the aura collision, then parted his lips to cough out a mouthful of blood. Sect leader! The crowd's expression changed greatly as they called out anxiously. If you find any errors, ads pop-up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 180, A Pair of Alluring Purple Eyes Part 3. Chapter 180, A Pair of Alluring Purple Eyes Part 3. The sect leader waved his hand and gritted his teeth as he ordered, quickly retreat. It wouldn't be too late for a gentleman to exact his revenge, even if he had to wait 10 years. He would always have the chance to seek revenge if he didn't die. The silver-robed man raised his hand slightly, and a black ray of light struck toward the sect leader's chest. The sect leader chose not to resist against it and instead welcomed it, spreading his defenses wide. The sect leader rapidly retreated backward, borrowing the force of that black light. Taking advantage of this moment, his hand landed on a golden lion to the side. With a push of his palm's wind, the golden lion moved. At the same time, a stone door opened behind it. He sniggered coldly at the silver-robed man before entering the stone wall, destroying the key to opening the secret pathway as he left that golden lion. The silver-robed man looked at the tightly shut stone door, but didn't pursue the sect leader. He instead used those that were abandoned by the sect leader as targets to vent his anger. A bloodbath occurred within the Saintist sect, creating a human hell. Night. The moon was like water as it gave off a faint light. The young girl within a room had her eyes closed tightly, her eyelashes trembling slightly. It was obvious that she felt extremely uneasy. The young girl's skin was wonderfully smooth and radiant. It looked devastatingly beautiful beneath the moonlight. Yet, who was there to see a silver-robed figure enter through the room's window to stand before the young girl's bed? He focused wholeheartedly on the young girl who was sleeping soundly. He touched his bare face and couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Following that, he replaced the silver mask, covering his visage. The instant he placed the mask back on his face, the young girl abruptly opened her cold eyes. She leapt up from her bed and mercilessly pierced two of her fingers toward the throat of the man standing before her bed. But she stopped once she neared the man's throat. Wu Chen. No, you are not Wu Chen. Who are you? The elation on the young girl's face faded gradually as she lifted her head to look at the man before her, stressing each syllable as she asked her question. She had seen Wu Chen's silver mask before, so she had misidentified this man as Wu Chen. But Wu Chen didn't have purple eyes, and even the aura between this man and Wu Chen was different. This man wasn't Yi Wu Chen. The man extended his hand as though wanting to caress the young girl's face. Yet, he immediately put down his hand the moment he was about to touch her. A trace of bitterness and reluctance flashed past his eyes. He gave the young girl a last deep look before wordlessly turning his body to leave the room. Ru Yue's heart palpitated slightly. Initially, Bai Zhe had deep pain in his eyes when he looked at her. Although she didn't know why she felt a slight twinge of discomfort when she saw the pain in his eyes, it had only been up to that extent. Yet, when she saw this man's pain, her heart felt as if it had been violently pierced by something. She lifted her head to look in the direction where the man had disappeared and slightly pursed her lips. Wu Chen, was that actually you? If it was, then why didn't you want to meet me? She was destined to have a sleepless night tonight. Son. Once the man left the Mu residence, he nearly toppled over from the pain. He used his hand to gently caress the silver mask on his face. With pain-filled purple eyes, he muttered, "This power has returned once again." The power rampaging all over his body was uncontrollable. Even he didn't know what was going on. Intense pain made the man break out in a cold sweat. He raised his head to yell out. At that moment, countless black flames shot out from his body, completely burning down the surrounding trees. Following that, serenity returned, leaving the man gasping violently for air. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 181, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 1. Chapter 181, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 1. Bright sunlight entered the hall from outside. Madame Shangyu was discussing something with Xiao Tianyu and often giggled happily. When she saw the young girl entering the room, the smile on her exquisite face intensified. "Yue, your father and I are discussing when we should return to the Xiao family. After you return home and proclaim your ancestry, your grandfather will definitely be elated." When Ru Yue looked at Madame Shangyu's gentle appearance, her lips curved up into a faint smile. "I will head back with you after I've settled all matters here." She was only making a trip back. She still had many matters to settle and wouldn't be able to stay continuously within the Xiao family. Wu Chun. Suddenly, the image of those pained and sorrowful purple eyes last night appeared in Ru Yue's mind. It was as if something violently pierced her heart. His brows knitted slightly from the pain. Was that man really Wu Chen? If it wasn't Wu Chen, then who else could it be? "Father, Mother, I have something I would like to ask." Madame Shangyu and Xiao Tianyu looked at one another before shifting their gazes back to Ru Yue. With a gentle smile, she prompted, "Yue, you can ask us anything." "I don't know, but have you two ever heard the name, Bai Zhe?" Bai Zhe was an immortal-like handsome man. This was a man she was unable to forget. She kept feeling that they'd known each other before, but she just couldn't remember where. "Bai Zhe?" Xiao Tianyu frowned. "I remember this being recorded within an ancient book. Bai Zhe seems to be the name of an early historic vicious beast." "Early historic vicious beast?" Ru Yue was slightly stunned. That man didn't seem very vicious. "Father, can you describe that beast in more detail?" Xiao Tianyu looked at Ru Yue and gave a slight sigh. "I'm not very sure about this." Bai Zhe seemed to have been a top expert of the central region. He completed a contract with a human and accompanied that person on expeditions everywhere. Following that, the person seemed to have disappeared. Some people said that the person had died. Others said he'd become a god. There were various rumors surrounding that person. After that person vanished, Bai Zhe similarly disappeared from the world. But it was a person of the central region after all, so I don't really know the finer details of what happened. Ru Yue raised her brows. It seemed that if she wanted to resolve her curiosity, she would have to make a trip to the central region. Even though Ru Yue wasn't a person from this world, she knew that the central region was where the true elites roamed. It was filled with countless experts, and her current abilities were too insufficient to go there. "Wait 3 days for me. I will settle all of my matters here within that time frame and return back to the Xiao family with you." To be honest, Ru Yue didn't want to go to Shang Domain, but, for Madame Shangyu, she would head back and proclaim her ancestry. Sun. Fine sunny weather. Old man Xiao sighed slightly in the Xiao family's clan hall inside Shang Domain. He often gazed outside with a trace of anxiousness on his elderly face. Tian Er and Yue had already left for some time. Why hadn't they returned? Could it be that something had gone wrong with his granddaughter so they had to stay there for a while? The old man grew increasingly restless. If he had been stronger 16 years ago, then perhaps that incident wouldn't have occurred. It was due to him being unable to suppress those obstinate fools that they'd given the evildoers a chance. Truthfully, he had let down this couple and their offspring. It had already been 16 years, and he still felt as guilty after all these years as he had then. He bore this guilt every single moment and was afraid that his Xiao family's flesh and blood had been bullied in the outside world. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 182, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 2. Chapter 182, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 2. Father, I'm back. Under the anxious waiting of the old man, a middle-aged voice came from outside. When he looked out, he saw Xiao Tianyu and Madame Shangyu side by side, walking over to him. Moreover, Madame Shangyu was holding onto the hand of a remarkably beautiful young girl. This young girl's appearance was similar to Madame Shangyu, so he didn't need an introduction to know who she was. Tian Yue, you're finally back. The old man was elated and hastily went forward. His gaze examined Mu Yue from top to bottom a couple of times, sizing her up. Mu Yue felt a little uncomfortable with him sizing her up, and goosebumps appeared all over her body. The old man rubbed his fist and chuckled, asking, "This should be my granddaughter?" Madame Shangyu smiled as she pulled on Mu Yue's hand and led her toward the old man. "Yue, this is your grandfather." Mu Yue raised her head to look at the old man upon hearing this. This old man with a wide smile looked really affable, but traces of light flashed past his eyes occasionally. With a glance, she knew that this old man was a schemer. She'd thought that the old man of the Xiao family would be a strict old man. She hadn't expected that he would be like this. Mu Yue blinked her eyes before calling him grandfather. "Yes," replied the old man immediately. He raised a calloused hand to rub Mu Yue's head. "Such an obedient child. Tian, when are you going to let her proclaim her ancestry? Some of those obstinate fools will most likely give you trouble at that time, especially Xiaoyin. Recently, his granddaughter was crippled by someone outside, so he will use that reason to create trouble." Xiao Tianyu smiled coldly. After that period of time when our couple cleaned up the family, some of the old men had settled down a great deal. If they dare to say anything, don't blame me for not remembering old affections. A trace of sinister killing intent flashed past Xiao Tianyu's eyes. If they dared to create trouble, he didn't mind killing a few to set an example. "Father." Madame Shangyu smiled and clung onto the old man's arm. "The person who crippled Xiaomin when she was outside was your granddaughter's fiancé." "Eh?" The old man was startled as he turned his gaze toward Madame Shangyu. He blinked his eyes in confusion and queried, "What do you mean? What had Xiaomin done in the outside world that would enrage others again? How was it now related to his granddaughter's fiancé?" "Father, you should understand Xiaomin's personality. She has always looked down upon everyone. She previously took a fancy to Yuer's fiancé and harassed him. But that man was devoted to only Mu Yue and didn't look at her. She then challenged Yuer to a fight and even used the Xiao family's forbidden technique, yet was still defeated by Yuer. Following that, Yuer's fiancé rushed toward them and, after seeing that bitch Xiaomin hurting Yuer, he crippled her dantian due to his rage. Yet, do you know what that obstinate fool, Xiaoyin, said at that time? He said that Xiaomin was an innocent and weak girl that had been provoked by Yuer. He also said that since Yuer's fiancé crippled Xiaomin, it was similar to being the enemy of our Xiao family and the entire Shang domain. There was a great uproar going around because of this matter. After Madame Shangyu had met up with Mu Yue and done a simple investigation, she clearly understood everything. She couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat when thinking of Mu Yue and that day and couldn't wait to break Xiaomin into countless pieces. She was just a branch disciple of the Xiao family while Yuer was their main branch young mistress. It was impossible for Xiaomin to be comparable to Mu Yue. It was laughable that she had actually said Yuer was just an ordinary girl and wasn't worthy of that man. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 183, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 3. Chapter 183, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 3. The old man didn't hear the last part of what Madame Shengyu said. After he heard that Xiao Min had used the forbidden technique of the Xiao family, he was stunned. What did the forbidden technique represent? It was one of the worst moves, as it was akin to destroy their enemy of 1,000 by sacrificing 800 of their own. Yet, Xiao Min had used that technique to deal with his own granddaughter? Within large families, there were generally differences between the main branch and side branch. The main branch had incomparable nobility. How could a person from the side branch be compared to the main branch? Moreover, that damnable Xiao Min was a girl of the side branch, yet she wanted to kill a lady of the main branch? Her crime was severe. The old man was so completely enraged that he even forgot to ask how Ru Yue was still able to defeat Xiao Min after she had used the Xiao family's forbidden technique. Madame Shengyu had been observing the expression of the old man from the start. When she saw that the old man had turned ashen, her lips curled up into a faint smile. Xiao Min, did you think you would be fine after hurting my daughter? Father, in comparison to dealing with Xiao Min, we should first let my daughter proclaim her ancestry. As for that bitch, Xiao Min, I will thoroughly settle this debt with her. A trace of frost flashed past Madame Shengyu's eyes. She had been too lazy to bother with Xiao Min in the past, no matter how terrible she had acted. Yet, Xiao Min had dared to bully her daughter. She had also been delusional enough to try to steal Yu Er's fiancé. With her personality, how could she be comparable to Yu Er? Alright, I will prepare this matter in a bit. We must let my granddaughter proclaim her ancestry as soon as possible in order to silence those people. The old man snorted, his old face turning ashen. It was obvious that he was angered by Xiao Min's actions, and that nothing would be able to appease him. Yu Er, let's go. I will bring you to see Qing. Your elder brother will also be coming back in a few days. Madame Shengyu held Ru Yue's hand with a gentle smile on her face. Madame Shengyu had always been beautiful. But with that smile, she became a devastating charmer. Ru Yue let herself be freely pulled along. The warmth of her mother's palm seeped into her, warming her heart. Mother! Xiao Qing, who was playing in a little stream inside the courtyard, saw Madame Shengyu. She hastily ran over barefoot from the stream toward the noble and graceful woman. Mommy, Qing missed you so much. Xiao Qing lifted her tender jade-like face and placed her wet hands on Madame Shengyu's body. She blinked a bright pair of large eyes and looked so adorable that it filled everyone's heart with tender feelings for her and had physical change in expression. Madame Shengyu's heart softened and she bent down to lift the little girl. She patted her small head. Filled with tenderness, she said warmly, "Why are you completely drenched? Didn't you often tell us that you wanted to see elder sister Yu Er? She is finally in our Xiao family." Xiao Qing leaped out from Madame Shengyu's embrace and pounced toward Ru Yue. Her small hand hugged the young girl's leg as she lifted her head to look at that exquisite face. Elder sister Yu Er, you're finally here. Qing missed you. Can you become the wife of elder brother in the future? Her voice was very childish. It was so tender and soft that it was incredibly adorable. Yet, her words stunned Madame Shengyu and Ru Yue. Qing, Yu Er is your blood-related elder sister and is also the blood-related younger sister of your elder brother. How can she marry with this blood tie? Madame Shengyu crouched down and patiently taught her. Xiao Qing blinked her large eyes with confusion. Why is elder brother unable to marry his blood-related younger sister? Madame Shengyu was dazed. She suddenly felt she should really teach her some common knowledge. If you find any errors, ads pop-up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 184, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 4. Chapter 184 Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 4. Yu Er. Madame Xingyu shifted her gaze to Ru Yue and, with a warm smile, continued, "Didn't you want to know about Baizhe? There should be some books in the Xiao family's archive about that. I will bring you there for a look." Ru Yue nodded slightly. "All right, son." Within the Xiao family archive, the scent of books wafted over them once they stepped inside the building. Ru Yue let Madame Xingyu leave first as she searched through the archive alone. It was undeniable that the Xiao family archive really consisted of countless books. There were even some books that depicted the history of the continent and mountain load of books on martial skills. Therefore, Ru Yue found a place to sit and submerged herself within the sea of books. It wasn't until sunset that she finally walked out from that sea of books, her hand closed around one volume. A ray of sunlight descended from the sky. Under the sunset, the shadow behind the young girl was elongated. "Yan Jin, do you know anything about Baizhe?" The young girl lowered her head to look at the small black beast in her embrace. The little beast didn't even lift his head as it coldly snorted. How could he know Baizhe? Yet, there was a power emitted from that man that made him apprehensive. That power was similar to the other person's power, the one who had previously trapped him in the Alchemy Book. "Little girl, this senior wants to increase his strength." Yan Jin finally raised his head and, with a profound gaze in his black eyes, continued, "If you want to go to the central region, which is much more dangerous than Shang Domain, this senior must improve his strength." Ru Yue slightly raised her brow. "You still haven't told me how I am supposed to help you increase your strength." Yan Jin blinked his black eyes. "This senior didn't tell you? I initially possessed great strength, but because of that alchemy book, I used up the majority of my power. Thus, the only way for this senior to regain his power is through medicinal plants." "Medicinal plants?" "That's right. This senior can convert the medicinal strength from medicinal plants and add it to his own power. I am currently at the false Xiantian grade. You will need to find 1,000-year medicinal plant for this senior. I will then use that power to break through to the Xiantian realm." A Xiantian practitioner was a top-grade expert within Shang Domain. "I will ask my parents if they have 1,000-year medicinal plant in the Xiao family." Ru Yue looked at Yan Jin. If his power increased, then it would also be greatly beneficial to her. She wouldn't encounter much danger. But she still didn't know what stage Yi Wu Chen had reached. That man could instantly kill a false Xiantian. Could it be he possessed strength above the Xiantian realm? Ru Yue became slightly melancholic. It seemed that she still had a long way to go before she could walk alongside that man. But no matter what, she definitely wouldn't give up on that goal. "It's you!" A sudden shriek was heard before her. Xiao Min's pale face glared malevolently at Ru Yue. With tightly clenched fists, she forcefully suppressed the roaring sea of fury in her heart. "Bitch, why are you in my Xiao family? Who allowed such a person like you to step into this place? Immediately scram!" Xiao Min was so angered that her chest heaved heavily, her beautiful finger pointed toward Ru Yue's nose as she shouted furiously. In the dark, when Xiao Lin saw Xiao Min's arrogant and despotic appearance, he frowned slightly. Since Madame Xingyu worried about Ru Yue's safety, she had arranged for Xiao Lin to protect her from the shadows. She had even instructed that if someone sought to bring trouble to her daughter, he could instantly cripple them, so Xiao Lin had constantly been following Ru Yue. He couldn't not appear now. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 185, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 5. Chapter 185, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 5. Xiao Lin sighed. Just as he wanted to carry out Madame Xiangyu's order and protect Ru Yue, who knew that at that moment, the little beast in the young girl's embrace would lift its head. A trace of a tyrannical and cold light could be seen in its abyss-like black eyes. Following that, he saw a black ray of light flash out. Xiao Min's finger, which had been pointing at Ru Yue, shattered. Blood immediately spluttered everywhere, and a heart-wrenching shout echoed throughout the entire Xiao family. Xiao Lin was stunned for a moment before turning back around, shaking his head as he smiled bitterly. The eldest young mistress doesn't seem to need their protection. The madam had truly belittled the eldest young mistress. Ru Yue didn't even continue to look at the fainted Xiao Min as she turned to leave. Her indifferent appearance made it look as though nothing had happened. Son. Inside a training room, gray robes fluttered without any wind. Xiao Yin was currently at the most critical point in his training. He suddenly heard an anxious voice from outside the training room. Elder, something terrible has happened. Xiao Yin frowned, and with a trace of impatience, he lifted his head to look at the person that hurriedly came in. What has happened for you to make such a fuss? Something happened to the young mistress. The man frantically continued. The young mistress was hurt within the Xiao family. One of her fingers was cut off. What? Xiao Yin abruptly stood up with intense fury. After yelling out, he directly punched a great hole in the wall. Whomever hurts my granddaughter inside the Xiao family is seeking death. He gritted his teeth tightly and with bloodshot eyes, shouted with fury, immediately bring me to see Min Er. But Min Er's body hadn't fully recovered after using the Xiao family's forbidden technique. She was also unhappy from being defeated by a trash. Now, some damnable bastard dared to touch his granddaughter? That person must be seeking death. He definitely wouldn't let that person go. Son. Inside a room, Xiao Min consumed a pill and gradually woke up. She could still feel the piercing pain coming from her finger. She jumped into Xiao Yin's embrace and wailed. Grandfather, you must avenge Min Er. Xiao Min's face paled from the pain and the tears rolling from her eyes made her look really pitiful. Min Er, what happened? Xiao Yin looked at his granddaughter with pain. This was the sole flesh and blood child that his son and wife left him with. How could he not feel pain? Grandfather, it's that bitch. Xiao Min gritted her teeth with hatred when she remembered the damnable face of Ru Yue. It is all because of that bitch that I had fallen to such a state. I don't know why she came to our Xiao family, but grandfather, you must help me kill that bitch. I must let her die a terrible death. Her current, sorry state was all because of that bitch. From now on, it would be either you or I that lives. So long as I, Xiao Min, lives, I definitely wouldn't let that bitch live. Grandfather, she didn't dare to put any importance on me. She surely knows some people in the Xiao family and just went along with her own ways, solely depending on her connections. But grandfather is a founder elder of the Xiao family. If you go and plead to the family's head, the head of the family will definitely stand on our side and kill that damnable bitch. Even if she knows people from the Xiao family, she will definitely die. A trace of viciousness appeared in Xiao Min's eyes. Ru Yue, no matter what, you will definitely die here. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 186, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 6. Chapter 186, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 6. Xiao Lin reported what just happened to Xiao Tianyu and Madame Shangyu within the main hall. It was obvious that their expressions darkened. With a slight snort, Madame Shangyu placed her hand gently on the table. Husband, let's go find father. We don't even need to think to know that the old man will immediately ask father to seek justice for him. Madame Shangyu had long since been unsatisfied with that old man. When she had first married into the Xiao family and hadn't yet become Madame Shangyu, that old man had tried forcing her husband to take in other wives. How could there be other people, excluding her, in his bed? That bastard Xiao Yin had wanted to give his daughter as a concubine to him due to her liking brother Tian. He even said that the bloodline of a woman from the outside weren't pure, so how about internal mating within the Xiao family? Madame Xingyu really wanted to kill the old man at that time. And now, his granddaughter took a fancy of her daughter's fiancé and was delusionally trying to destroy her daughter's happiness. How could she stand this? Furthermore, Xiao Min's actions were intolerable to the point that even the people of Shang Domain couldn't bear her. I have wanted to deal with that old man for a long time already. Xiao Tianyu chuckled coldly. During my investigations these past years, I finally found out that this old man had an undeniable connection with the Nangong family when they infiltrated into the Xiao family. If he dares to look for father today, then I will settle all of this past and present debt with him while conveniently giving Yue her rightful status. Being protective was human nature. Xiao Yin's protectiveness was similar to Xiao Tianyu's. It was just a pity that it was Xiao Min that had provoked his long-lost daughter, a genuine main-branch young mistress. Thus, that old man and his granddaughter certainly wouldn't be able to get any good outcome this time. They might even lose their lives. As expected, the couple had guessed correctly. After seeing Xiao Min hurt, Xiao Yin immediately bolted to find old man Xiao within his study room. Once he found him, he started to complaining to old man Xiao. "Family head, you must give me justice. That bitch Ru Yue has gone overboard and hurt my precious granddaughter. Nothing will appease my hatred unless she is cut into countless pieces, blade after blade. Family head, I only have the request of placing that bitch Ru Yue into my hands. Moreover, the person that brought her here, and their relatives, should also be expelled from our Xiao family." Xiao Yin gritted his teeth in hatred. He didn't in the slightest see that the old man's expression had darkened. Wasn't it his son that brought Ru Yue here? Wasn't the relatives of his son the entire main branch's younger generation? This old man was simply too daring. He was only an elder of a side branch, yet he wanted to chase out the entire main branch of the Xiao family? Who gave this stupid and foolish old man the guts? The old man's face turned ashen. He suppressed the molten fury in his heart and, with a darkened face, ordered, "I want to commence a family meeting as I have something important to announce. You are to gather all of the elders in the discussion room. No one is allowed to be absent. Whoever doesn't come, they can just leave the Xiao family." The old man didn't look at Xiao Yin's expression as he just walked out of the room after giving his orders. A trace of hatred appeared in Xiao Yin's eyes as he looked at that departing figure. It seemed that this old man planned to stand by his side this time. That bitch wouldn't be able to escape death, and this including the fools that brought her to the Xiao family. They similarly wouldn't be let off unscathed. How noble was his Xiao family? How could an ordinary girl step into such a place? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 187, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 7. Chapter 187, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 7. A bunch of old men looked at each other in the discussion room. They didn't know what the head of the family wanted to announce at this meeting. The door to the discussion room was opened again, just when the crowd was filled with curiosity. Xiao Tianyu and his wife walked in side by side. There was a beautiful young girl following beside Madame Xingyu. Her plain clothes fluttered from a breeze. The appearance of the young girl was exceptional, and her expression was as cold as her eyes. She didn't wear any other accessories, excluding the jade-colored earrings that constantly swayed due to the breeze. There was a small black beast in the young girl's embrace. Its body was like gelatin, and it looked incredibly cute with its soft body. It seemed harmless. When she entered, the crowd quieted down, curiosity in their eyes. Who was this young girl? The discussion room wasn't accessible to ordinary people. Moreover, she came with the young head and wife of the Xiao family. It's her. When Xiao Yin's gaze fell on the young girl's face, his eyes turned red-hot from hatred. He clenched his fists tightly and abruptly stood up. Ru Yue, you are really in my Xiao family. Xiao Yin gritted his teeth and glared at her viciously. You hurt my granddaughter when she was outside the family, and now you cut off my granddaughter's finger after coming to the Xiao family. Do you think you can live from hurting my granddaughter? Since you touched her finger, I will take your life as compensation. Xiao Min was severely injured and her cultivation scrapped when she was traveling outside. She had to be carried back. The Xiao family didn't know that the incident had been done by this young girl. Cough, cough. Old man Xiao coughed dryly in order to clear his throat. To all of the elders, I have something to announce today. A cold gaze shot toward Xiaoyin. The old man had a trace of gloominess on his face, but when he looked at Ru Yue, his gaze became gentle. Do you remember that about 16 years ago, a child of my son and his wife was stolen? The ninth elder looked at the old man and pondered for a while before replying, Family head, hadn't that child already been killed by the Nangong family? Old man Xiao chuckled. Killed? How can that be? A subordinate of the Nangong family couldn't bear to kill her, so she passed my granddaughter to a house in the outside world to be raised there. Recently, this couple went to acknowledge her. The reason I have summoned you today is to allow my granddaughter to proclaim her ancestry and return to the Xiao family. Everyone was stunned for a moment as they shot curious gazes toward the young girl beside Madame Shengyu. Could it be that this girl was the long-lost daughter of the young head? That's right, she is my granddaughter, the one that had been stolen away by the Nangong family. Seeing the crowd focusing their gazes on Ru Yue, old man Xiao raised his head and admitted it straightforwardly. What? Xiaoyin was shocked as he directed a deathly glare at Ru Yue. His gaze was as though he wanted to pierce a couple of holes in that young girl's body. That's impossible. Without waiting for Xiaoyin to rebuke, a delicate shout was heard within the discussion room. Xiao Min's injuries hadn't yet recovered, but she'd come to see how her grandfather would deal with Ru Yue. Who knew she would hear such words? She couldn't bear to remain outside and dashed into the room. It wasn't distinct whether it was due to her wounds or from what old man Xiao said, but the current Xiaomin had a pale white face. She glared viciously at Ru Yue with fury and jealousy. She didn't think about what she was going to say due to her anger. What right does this bitch have to possess my Xiao family's bloodline? She's unworthy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 188, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 8. Chapter 188, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 8. Xiao Min was crazed due to her anger. No matter how arrogant and despotic she usually was, she definitely wouldn't dare to be so brazen before Xiao Tianyu and his wife. Yet, she had completely lost her rationality and just wanted to rip this damnable girl into bits. Anyone who experienced what she had would also have difficulty keeping their senses. Who knew that the ordinary girl she'd looked down upon had suddenly leaped to become the main branched young mistress of the Xiao family? It was a position and status she'd fought to achieve for such a long time. Why was she able to achieve what she couldn't? Was it due to her possessing the blood of Xiao Tianyu and Madame Shengyu? This wasn't fair. Xiao Min was so angry that she clenched her fist, her delicate body shuddering. The pain from her nails reminded her of everything this girl had done to her. Pa! A jade-like hand swung at her face. The crisp slapping sound broke the tranquility of the discussion room. Similarly, it had slowly woken Xiao Min to her senses. She lifted her eyes toward the cold expression of Madame Shengyu. She was so frightened that her body trembled. Young madam. Xiao Min pursed her lips slightly, grievance in her eyes. Outrageous! Madame Shengyu shouted. With ice-cold frost covered her face, she asked, Who gave you the guts to insult my daughter? But, she was the one that provoked me first. Not only did she make people scrap my cultivation, she cut off my finger. Xiao Min lifted her hand. Her cut-off finger alarmed the crowd. The elders shifted their gazes to Ru Yue and took in a deep breath. This young girl was so venomous at such a tender age. What would happen in the future? If she was the daughter of the Shao family would reach its demise under her hands. My daughter hurt you first? Madame Shang Yu chuckled coldly. With traces of mockery in her beautiful eyes, she clarified, Xiaomin, was she really the one that provoked you first? Do you think I am clueless? I don't care if you usually rely on your power to oppress others, but now you have done it to Yue. Tell me, for what reason do you think I will let you off? Her ice-cold gaze and sharp tone was like thorns that viciously pierced Xiaomin's heart. A layer of tears coated Xiaomin's eyes. Just when she wanted to stand up for herself, she was intercepted by Madame Shang Yu's frosty tone. When you were outside, you took a fancy to Yue's fiancé and wanted to snatch away her fiancé. You even used my Shao family name and my own name to threaten her. You even publicized yourself as my daughter. I don't know when I had adopted such a shameless daughter. What qualifications do you have to proclaim yourself as my child? Xiaomin's body shuddered slightly as she bit her lips, too afraid to say anything. You tried to use the Shao family's power to snatch that man. You even went to seek trouble with Yue and even challenged her to a fight. It was due to your skills being inferior to hers that you resorted to using the Shao family's forbidden technique in the hopes of killing my daughter. It was already lenient for my daughter and her fiancé to not kill you in the name of the Shao family. What more do you want? You accidentally offended an expert outside and that expert infiltrated my Shao family to cut off your finger? You even thought of blaming it on Yue. Do you think people wouldn't know and find all of this out? It's truly laughable as Xiaolin saw all of this happening. Xiaolin, who had been following behind Xiao Tianyu and his wife, almost fell after hearing what Madame Shang Yu said. So the young madam also has her shameless moments. If you find any errors, ads pop-up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 189, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 9. Chapter 189, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 9. Xiaomin widened her eyes as she looked with astonishment at Madame Shang Yu's ice-cold face. No, that didn't happen. It is obviously that the bitch cut my finger off. Madame Shang Yu coldly snorted as she said icily, Xiaomin, you still want to lie at this moment? My Yue isn't as savage as you are. Don't you even think of placing the debts you accumulated outside my Shao family. That expert is too powerful. My Shao family can't afford to offend him, and even more so, we won't go and provoke him for you. How could Xiaomin not know that Madame Shang Yu was purposefully helping Ru Yue at this time? She clenched her fist in fury. The blazing fire of anger in her heart seemed about ready to set her alight. When the other elders heard Madame Shang Yu's words, they nodded. That young girl didn't seem to be such a cruel person. On the other hand, there was a possibility that the arrogant and despotic Xiaomin had created a lot of trouble outside and offended an expert, resulting in that expert coming to the Shao family to settle the debt with her. Actually, Madame Shang Yu wasn't lying as the one that broke off Xiaomin's finger wasn't Ru Yue, but instead the harmless-looking little beast in her embrace. This could be counted as Xiaomin offending an expert. Young madam, are you not lying with your eyes open? Xiao Yin's expression darkened as he looked sinisterly cold at Madame Shang Yu. That girl broke my granddaughter's finger. She must break 2 of her fingers as repayment. If not, I won't let this matter go. Won't let this matter go? Madame Shang Yu chuckled mockingly. With a layer of ice in her beautiful eyes, she continued, what right do you think you have? Father has commenced this meeting, not only for Yue to proclaim her ancestry, but also to announce another matter. I will announce it on his behalf instead. From now on, Xiaoyin is no longer my Shao family's elder. I will banish Xiaoyin and his family from the Shao family, never to return. Expulsion from the Shao family was the most severe punishment. It could be seen how enraged Madame Shang Yu was. You, Xiaoyin was so angered that his old face turned red. He pointed at Madame Shangyu after a moment. Madame Shangyu, don't you think you are going too far? I have worked so hard for the Xiao family all these years, and now you want to banish me from the Xiao family? What right do you have to do that? Madame Shangyu narrowed her eyes slightly. She wasn't angry, but laughed instead. Xiaoyin, have you forgotten my identity? The owner of the sacred spirit spring, Madame Shangyu, was the governor of the Shang domain. How could she not have the right to expel someone from the Xiao family? Even if she just had the identity of being the young madam of the Xiao family, she still had the power to make such a decision. Xiao Yin's body shuddered. He was too enraged, which was why he'd said those irrational words. Madame Shangyu symbolized the power of Shang domain. Xiaoyin, don't think I didn't know that it was precisely with your help in assisting the Nangong family 16 years ago that gave them the chance to steal my daughter. My husband had tried to destroy the Nangong family with his sword alone. If it wasn't for you taking lead in stopping him, the Nangong family would have already perished. Today, your granddaughter impersonated herself as my adopted daughter to snatch my biological daughter's fiancé. She even wanted to use that identity to bully her. Do you still think it's wrong to settle this debt with you? Madame Shangyu narrowed her eyes, an ice-cold smile on her face. Her golden yellow long robe made her look elegant, but it still wasn't able to cover up that iciness. Young madam, if it weren't for you inhibiting the young head and taking in concubines that year, that incident wouldn't have happened. Even though the young mistress of the Nangong family had taken a fancy of the young head, she was willing to place her status lower and become his lower concubine. If you had given in a little, all of that wouldn't have occurred. This is a world that focuses on male strength. It is only natural for the men to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. For what reason did you stop him from doing so? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 190, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 10. Chapter 190, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 10. Initially, if it wasn't for the young madam rejecting his daughter servicing the young head, his daughter wouldn't have chosen to commit suicide due to her feelings being unaccepted. It was due to the pain of losing his daughter that he agreed to the Nangong family's request in assisting them to infiltrate the Xiao family and steal the young madam's daughter. His daughter was in her prime. Her talent and appearance was also great, and she just wanted to be a concubine of the young head. What right did she have to stop that? In this world, which man would choose to live their life with only a single woman? It was normal and common sense for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. Xiaoyin, what you really wanted to say was your daughter. Madame Shangyu smiled coldly at Xiaoyin. I will tell you why now. You are a man, so you naturally won't understand how we girls feel. In your eyes, a man should have 3 wives and 4 concubines and be surrounded by girls. But as a woman, I love my husband, so I don't want to share him with others. Moreover, which eyes did you use to see me stop my husband in taking other wives? Those girls were personally pushed away by my husband. My husband can take in other wives or concubines, but I would just choose to leave him after. If he had the heart to take in others, I definitely won't stop him. Similarly, if I want to leave the Xiao family, he can't stop me. She definitely wouldn't share her husband with others in her life. If Xiao Tianyu really did let her down, then this man wasn't worthy of her deep affection. Yue, Xiao Tianyu walked forward and gently embraced his wife before shifting his gaze to Xiaoyin, who still had a terrible expression. With a sharp gaze, he clarified, what Yue said was right. She did not stop me from taking in other wives. It is due to me personally not wanting to have a relationship with other girls. Xiaoyin, you have done so many things, do you think I will let you off? He wouldn't be satisfied if Xiaoyin and his granddaughter didn't die. He could only kill these 2 to appease his anger. Currently, Xiaoyin was so angered that he couldn't speak. Whenever he thought about his daughter's death, he couldn't help but loathe this Xiao Tianyu and Madame Shangyu couple. Even if the young head didn't want to let down the young madam, did that have to mean his daughter's life meant nothing? His daughter had used death to force his hand, but he still didn't want to take her in as his concubine. Even if it were on behalf of being an elder of the Xiao family, he shouldn't have rejected her. If Xiao Tianyu heard Xiao Yin's thought, he would definitely have felt he was laughable. Could it be that if all the women in the world used their life to threaten him, he must accept them? A girl that didn't treasure her own life and used such a method to force him, why should he treat her courteously? What he hated in his life was to be threatened. When Ru Yue looked at the loving couple, she was rather touched. Even if this continent respected experts, a man's position was still higher than a woman's. It was normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines, but girls would be treated as a slut if they did that. Thus, there wasn't any gender equality on this martial god continent. However, Xiao Tianyu was able to wholeheartedly love only Madame Shangyu, and this was really touching. The men on this continent that were willing to have only one woman in their life were in their minority. Subconsciously, Ru Yue suddenly thought about Yi Wu Chen's divine-like face. Yet, she didn't know where her man was now. "Father, mother, please allow me to settle these remaining matters." Ru Yue smiled faintly. She gently caressed the head of the little beast in her embrace, saying, "Yan Jin, that old man was impolite to my parents. What do you think I should do?" Yan Jin suddenly raised his small head, and his abyss-like eyes focused on Xiaoyin. His black eyes were filled with a brazen and domineering aura as he looked with disdain at the crowd before him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 191, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 11. Chapter 191, Returning Home and Proclaiming Her Ancestry Part 11. Xiao Min bit her lips as she didn't believe that the little beast would be of any threat to her grandfather. But Xiaoyin, who had been baptized by time, didn't think the same. When the little beast looked over, he felt a power that made his soul tremble. That power made his body shake uncontrollably a couple of times, astonishment filling his face. "Oomph!" Yan Jin coldly snorted and leapt out from Ru Yue's embrace. Gradually, his body elongated before the crowd. A black-clothed man appeared before them in the next moment. That man's appearance looked as though it had been crafted. His black eyes were deep. Although he didn't have the divine-like appearance of Yi Wu Chen, he was still able to attract a girl's attention toward him. The domineering aura in his eyes was both tyrannical and unruly. It was as though he were a noble king. His body reeked with nobility, as though it were natural for him to stand at the top and look down with disdain at the bunch of ants. Xiantian magical beast. Xiao Yin's expression changed as he could clearly feel the tyrannical strength coming from this man. His cultivation was definitely at the Xiantian realm, and this was a magical beast that could humanize. That's right, after Ru Yue left the archive, she looked for Xiao Tianyu and his madam. Coincidentally, the Xiao family had 1,000 years medicinal plant which she'd then given to Yan Jin for his consumption. Hence, Yan Jin's current cultivation was now at the Xiantian realm. As a Xiantian expert, he held a highly prestigious position inside Sheng domain. This little girl is this senior's mistress. Similarly, she isn't someone you can hurt. Yan Jin lifted his head slightly and swept a disdainful gaze toward the pale Xiaoyin, saying, "You want to offend this senior with just your current cultivation? If he possessed his previous life strength, then not to mention Xiaoyin, he could destroy the Sheng domain whenever he wanted." Yan Jin gradually lifted his hand and a black ray of light shot forth from his sleeve. Pang! It struck Xiaoyin in the chest. His body was sent flying violently and he landed on the ground. This was the difference between a false Xiantian and a Xiantian. It was a heaven and earth difference, even if it supposedly differed by 1 grade. Xiao Min was stunned. It was as though she were looking at a monster when she gazed at Yan Jin. Suddenly, she saw his gaze shoot away from the man and toward her. Her delicate body couldn't help but shiver. No! Xiao Min shrieked as she retreated backward. Behind her was the doorstep and she fell back, directly rolling out. She was left in a sorry state from the roll. Scared? That's right, the current Xiao Min was scared. So this woman had such a strong magical beast. If she'd used this beast to fight against her, then she probably wouldn't have been able to return to Shang Domain. Yan Jin didn't even cast a second glance at Xiao Min as he felt it was too much of a humiliation to his hand if he made a move on this kind of woman. Do any of you have opinions regarding this senior's mistress? Yan Jin swept his gaze toward the elders. His tone was domineering and cold. This senior will give you a chance to say whatever opinions you have. Opinion? How could they dare to have an opinion? The crowd looked toward Old Man Xiao before smiling bitterly. If it was Old Man Xiao, then he could surely defeat this man. Yet, the old man clearly showed that he wouldn't take part in this matter. How could they still have opinions? Cough, cough. The old man coughed twice before standing up, his expression brimming with a smile. Since none of you have any opinions, this little girl will be able to proclaim her ancestry and become a member of our Xiao family from now on. I wish that all of you will remember the difference between the main branch and side branch. Don't you ever follow Xiao Yin's steps. If not, you will be punished by the family rules. If you find any errors, ads pop-up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 192, Ru Yue, My Woman Part 1. Chapter 192, Ru Yue, My Woman Part 1. The crowd's hearts trembled. Who still dared to say anything? Furthermore, it was only natural that she enter the Xiao family as a clan member who had the bloodline of the Xiao family and shouldn't stay outside. As for Xiao Yin and Xiao Min, the old man smiled coldly. They are forbidden to use the surname Xiao and are banished from the Xiao family. Xiao Yin clenched his fist tightly. He climbed up from the floor and gazed with furious eyes at the old man, cursing him, every word falling heavily. Family head, you will regret doing this. This old man didn't care about him and instructed someone at the side, why are you still standing there? Immediately toss these two out of the Xiao family. Also, 8th elder, come with me. After saying that, the old man left the discussion room without turning his head back once. Grandfather. Xiao Min walked over to Xiao Yin's side, tears of grievance in her eyes. She had been despotic and unruly when she used the name of the Xiao family. Now, she had lost this protective umbrella. She couldn't imagine what her future would be like now. Min Er, let's go. We don't need to concern ourselves with this Xiao family. We will definitely make them regret what they have done today. Xiao Yin's hatred deepened and intensified. He definitely wouldn't forgive the Xiao family. When Madame Shang Yu saw the killing intent in his eyes, she sniggered coldly. Did he really think father would let him go? All of this was just an act for the other elders to see. If they didn't eliminate a person like Xiao Yin, then troubles would definitely arise in the future. As such, they had no intention of letting him live. Wasn't there a phrase for this? If someone did bad deeds, they would be eliminated by the heavens. Inside the study room, the old man stood before the 8th elder and ordered, 8th elder, you are someone I trust the most within this Xiao family, so I want you to assassinate Xiao Yin and his granddaughter. The 8th elder's heart trembled violently as he looked in shock at the old man. However, he quickly regained his calm. Family head, what you are doing isn't wrong. Xiao Yin will definitely repay any grudges. He holds hatred in his heart and will definitely create trouble for our Xiao family in the future. Moreover, the crime he committed is already enough to sign his death warrant. 8th elder was an intelligent person, so he understood the reason why the old man was doing this. Xiao Yin was an elder of the Xiao family after all, so he definitely possessed men within the Xiao family. If they killed him openly, then while the other elders wouldn't dare to oppose the family head, their hearts would still ache. Instead of subjecting them to all this, the old man wanted to deal with Xiaoyin secretly. Son. Outside the border of the Xiao family, strong gusts of wind blew everywhere. While Xiao Min used her strength to resist against the wind and dust, she pulled on her clothing and shifted her gaze to the elder beside her. Grandfather, where are we heading to now? We will definitely go to the Nangong family. Xiaoyin chuckled coldly. Since the Xiao family won't keep us, we should naturally head to where we belong. The Nangong family has always been preying on the Xiao family like a tiger. It's a pity that the Nangong family has always been unable to become truly powerful. They were almost annihilated by just Xiao Tianyu alone about 16 years ago. But now, we don't have any other place to go except the Nangong family. Xiao Min was slightly displeased. How could the Nangong family be comparable to the Xiao family? Even though she was only from the side branch of the Xiao family, she was already much more noble when compared to the main branch of the Nangong family. Min Er, you don't know about this, but a talented girl has appeared in the Nangong family. That girl possesses prodigious innate talent. I've heard that the woman has been looking for a man as her partner. Compared to the Xiao family, the Nangong family holds great potential. Once we enter the Nangong family, we can definitely find a chance to seek vengeance. Don't you hate that Mu Yue woman to death? If we are able to acquire the assistance of the Nangong family, we will definitely be able to return the humiliation we suffered from today back to her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 193, Mu Yue, My Woman Part 2. Chapter 193, Mu Yue, My Woman Part 2. When Xiao Min thought about Mu Yue, she gritted her teeth with hatred. She definitely wouldn't be happy if she didn't avenge this grudge. She would chop that girl into 8 large pieces one day. No! She would find a bunch of beggars to rape her first before that. Suddenly, a figure was gradually becoming visible, walking toward them within the wind and dust. The silver robe appeared in their sights first. With radiant eyes that shone like light, he seemed to be filled with boundless nobility and all the elegance in the world. Those silver robes stayed clean without even a trace of dirt on them, even as he stood within the wind and dust. The man wore a silver mask. He was like ice, void of any emotions. Even though his appearance couldn't be seen, this man looked very fair just from his exposed jaw. This wasn't a sickly white color, but instead the white of the moon. It was so beautiful that it looked breathtaking. When Xiao Min shifted her gaze upward, a pair of purple eyes greeted her own. She couldn't help but be stunned, frozen in place as she stared love-struck at him. She had never seen anyone's eyes that could be this beautiful. It was even more beautiful than amethyst gemstones. They could captivate others, pulling them in and making it difficult for them to look away from it. Yet, although those eyes were beautiful, that sinister and cold, unfeeling aura made her heart shudder. Who are you? Xiao Yin's heart shuddered as he looked warily at the man before him. The newcomer did not have any good intentions. This man shouldn't be trifled with. Moreover, there was a fearful power emanating from his body. Just from the force of that power, he didn't dare to move his body. If this man wanted to kill them, it would be extremely simple. The man gently raised his gaze and a trace of killing intent flashed past his eyes. With lips parted slightly, what came out was a voice that was pleasant to the ear, but instantly cast others to hell. I'm someone after your lives. Xiao Yin's expression changed. Mister, we don't have any grudges or disputes. Why do you want to kill us? The man raised his foot to walk toward them. The silver robe fluttered with a gentle breeze. With each of his steps, a crushing pressure bore down on them. Under the might of that force, Xiao Yin could only feel an indistinct hand squeezing his throat. This man just needed the desire to rob him of his life and it would be done. Understanding this, Xiao Yin was extremely terrified. He wanted to break free from the restriction, but his body just couldn't move. You two bullied her. The man wore a silver mask so it was hard to see his expression, but that phrase was like ice, without a trace of warmth. I won't allow anyone that bullies her to live. Xiaoyin didn't know who he was referring to. He raised his head, stupefied. Mister, did you recognize the wrong person? I didn't bully anyone. Have you already forgotten? The man finally halted his steps, yet that pressure didn't disappear. Ru Yue is my woman. You two bullied her and still desire to live? No matter who it was or where they were, if they bullied her, they must be killed, but... You are... Xiaomin's body trembled, shock in her eyes as she exclaimed, that's impossible. You aren't the Ghost King. The Ghost King doesn't have purple eyes. Could it be that the bitch was like I had said and loose like water with her relationships and wasn't loyal to her man? How many other guys have there been, excluding the Ghost King? The gaze of the man chilled. With a wave of his hand, a tyrannical power sent Xiaomin's body flying. Xiaomin soared through the air for a while before landing. Wah! She coughed out a mouthful of blood. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 194, Ru Yue, My Woman Part 3. Chapter 194, Ru Yue, My Woman Part 3. Min Er. Xiaoyin's expression changed drastically. He gazed viciously at the silver-robed man. You attack a weak girl who doesn't have any means to resist. Are you still a man? The man looked coldly at him. Suddenly, the energy within Xiaoyin started to run amok, rampaging throughout his body. His old face paled as he moaned in pain. Slowly, cuts and gashes appeared on the body of the elder. Blood seeped out from those wounds. So what if I attack the girl? The man smiled and laughed cruelly, continuing, so long as it is one who tried to hurt her, no matter if it's a girl or a 3-year-old infant, I still won't let them off. Xiaoyin gritted his teeth tightly, blood flowing from the corner of his lips. Aren't you afraid of having a notorious reputation after doing this for years? The man's purple eyes surged with ridicule. With a cynical smile below the silver mask, he said, reputation cannot be compared to her within my heart. So what if he had a notorious reputation and was held in contempt for years? As long as it were those that wanted to harm her, then no matter if it was a girl or a 3-year-old infant, he wouldn't let any of them off. Xiaoyin suddenly remembered that man he'd met in the kingdom of Ziyu. That man had been known as the Ghost King, and he had said similar words. Even if he were to oppose the entire Shang domain, he definitely wouldn't allow anyone to hurt her in the slightest, not even a single strand of the hair on her head. You are the Ghost King, right? You must be him. I didn't expect you to come to Shang domain. Ha ha. You think you two can stay together? Let me tell you this, I won't let you two go even if I become a ghost. Xiaoyin laughed crazily. It was due to them that they have arrived at such an outcome. Thus, he surely wouldn't let them off. Hon. Xiaoyin's body violently exploded. A blood mist scattered through the wind and dust. But almost immediately, black flames flickered to life. The blood mist slowly vanished, consumed by the black flames. Become a ghost? I'm sorry, but you can't even become one. Xiaoyin would have never believed that this man could do such a thing and even rob him of the right to become a lingering soul. Once the soul was cremated, that person disappeared for all eternity. Grandfather. Just as Xiaomin managed to climb to her feet, she witnessed the cruel sight. She yelled out for her grandfather with all her might. Her grandfather, who had doted upon her since she was young, had died due to her greed. She knelt to the ground and her delicate body shuddered. Tears flowed down her face. Drop by drop, they fell to the ground. Suddenly, a foot stopped before her. Xiaomin lifted her head as she looked with horror at the man before her. Her body shook uncontrollably. No! Don't, please don't kill me. I don't want to die. I beg you to spare my life. I will do anything so long as you don't kill me. I beg you. You've already killed my grandfather. Please spare my life. She didn't want to die. She really didn't want to die here. There wasn't any emotion in the purple eyes of the man. His gaze did Xiao Men as though he were looking at a dead person. Following that, he gradually lifted his hand. No! Xiao Men was alarmed. Then, as though she had made a decision, she ripped her clothes, exposing her white skin. Please let me go. I am willing to serve you without any status. I just beg you to not kill me. Hon! An intense black flame rose from the ground, enclosing Xiao Men's naked body and covering the bared skin that would invoke disgust for him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 195, Who Exactly Are You? Part 1. Chapter 195, Who Exactly Are You? Part 1. Ben Wang had initially wanted to give you a quick end. It's a pity you didn't take that chance. In order for my eyes to not be dirted from looking at your body, I can only make you stay here until not a single trace of your soul is left behind. Only then will you be liberated from this place. The man raised his hand to dust at his robe before turning to walk toward the border of the Xiao family. He didn't even give Xiao Men another look. Xiao Men, within the black flames, couldn't plead for her life or for a quicker death. She could only look with despair at the departing figure of that man, holding boundless regrets. If only her grandfather hadn't pampered her so much since she was young, perhaps she wouldn't have grown up to be so arrogant and despotic and wouldn't have provoked these people. All in all, everything was her grandfather's fault. It was his fault for not being strict enough. One could only wonder how enraged Xiaoyin would be if he were resurrected and privy to her thoughts. Night. The moonlight was faint, with barely any light. Just as Ru Yue lay on her bed, a wave of sleepiness struck her. She tried to pry open her eyes, but was unable to wake up. Amidst her grogginess, she seemed to see a figure entering her room. The man stood beside the head of the bed. He focused on the young girl on the bed, a trace of gentleness appearing in his purple eyes. A slender finger brushed against the young girl's nose before landing on her lips. While he gently caressed it, his gaze became incredibly warm. Every motion of his finger was so gentle, as though he feared he might waken her abruptly. I'm sorry. The man muttered those words gently. There was pain and sorrow in his voice, along with infinite reluctance. But what could he do? He didn't have any other method except this. All of this in order to avoid harming her. Slowly, he lowered his head to place a kiss on the lips of the young girl. His kiss was so gentle, containing all of the tender feelings this man couldn't express openly. Yet, he felt that this wasn't enough. Her lips were so sweet and warm that they made him want so much more. The man parted the young girl's lips. Just as he was about to move his tongue to taste her, the previously closed-eyed young girl suddenly woke up. When the two of them looked at each other, the man's heart violently trembled. Yet, he didn't have the slightest intention of releasing her. Ru Yue narrowed her eyes and raised her leg to mercilessly kick him. The man didn't dodge and just stood there, enduring the kick to his most sensitive part. He groaned, but was still unwilling to let the young girl go after tasting her once more. The man held the young girl's hand tightly and pressed her down on the bed. Let me go. Ru Yue's expression gradually darkened. It was unknown why she felt a dangerous feeling coming from this man. Why did you wake up so quickly? Ru Yue sniggered. I am an alchemist. How long did you think that puny incapacitating agent would knock me unconscious for? Tell me, who exactly are you? I initially treated you as Wu Chen, but Wu Chen wouldn't use such flower thief ways like using an incapacitating agent to knock a girl unconscious late in the night. When the man lowered his head to look at the young girl and saw the wariness on her face, his heart felt as though it had been violently pierced by something. He was in so much pain, yet he really couldn't let her go. You will know who I am in the near future. Currently, he couldn't let her know anything as he didn't want her to be in danger while by his side. A light flashed past Ru Yue's eyes as she raised her hand to remove the man's mask. However, the man let go of her the moment she touched the mask. Following that, his silver robes disappeared in a flash as he moved to the door. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 196, Who Exactly Are You? Part 2. Chapter 196, Who Exactly Are You? Part 2. Moonlight shone down upon the silver robe of the man. Beneath the moonlight, he seemed so noble that a person was unable to look him in the eyes. It was as if he were genuine royalty. Ru Yue's heart suddenly palpitated. There was a familiar aura coming from this man. The way he looked at her sent a piercing pain through her heart for some reason. The man gave her another look before turning around, disappearing from under the moonlight. Even though he had left, there was still the warmth left by that man in her room. Who exactly are you? Why did she feel such familiarity? Yet, the feeling he gave her was different than the one from Wu Chen. Wu Chen brought warmth with his charm, and she'd felt safe when he was by her side. But this man gave her a dangerous vibe. Her fingers rubbed at her lips where she could still feel the imprint of that man lingering. Perhaps she would discover this man's identity soon. Son. The next day, within the Xiao family, a person whom Ru Yue wouldn't have expected arrived. The instant that she saw that man, she became excited and hurriedly went to greet him. A magnificent smile appeared on her exceptional face. Wu Chen, why are you here? She hadn't expected him. When Ching Ching had told her that a man had come looking for her, that man had actually been Yi Wu Chen, whom she hadn't seen for ages. The man gradually turned around and a gentle smile appeared on his handsome face. When his black eyes landed on the young girl's body, he said gently, I had heard that you came to the Xiao family, so I've come to see you. Ru Yue looked at him in astonishment and frowned slightly. She didn't know what exactly felt a little off, but it almost felt as though something wasn't quite right with the current Yi Wu Chen. What's wrong, Mu Er? Yi Wu Chen walked a couple of steps toward the young girl. With a charming smile, he continued, it has been a long time since we last met. Have you become distant with your husband? Ru Yue slowly came back to her senses as she shook her head and smiled bitterly. Perhaps she was being a little too sensitive. Wu Chen, it's great that you're back. When shall we prepare the wedding ceremony? No need to hurry that. Yi Wu Chen chuckled. A peculiar ray of light flashed past his black eyes. It was a pity that the light faded too quickly that Ru Yue wasn't able to catch it. Mu Er, it has been so long. Your husband really missed you. He took a step closer to Ru Yue as he said that. The smile on Ru Yue's face slowly faded as she looked with suspicion at the man before her. Wu Chen, what happened to you? I feel that something isn't right with you. Whenever she had seen Wu Chen in the past, she'd felt safe. Yet, why was it that, standing next to him now, she didn't have that feeling of safety? Yi Wu Chen raised his hand, but then gradually placed it down before it neared the young girl's face. With a charming smile, his divine-like appearance looked truly amazing. It was already too captivating with just that smile. Mu Er, let's go out for a walk. Ru Yue nodded her head slightly. All right. Son. At this moment, a silver-robed man not far from the border seemed to feel something. He slowly turned around and cast a gaze toward the Xiao family. He frowned slightly, an unfathomable emotion within his purple eyes. This feeling, the man's brows creased deeper. The uneasy feeling made his heart hurt. It was just like that time. Could it be that something had happened to her? I hope nothing bad happens to her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 197, Who Exactly Are You? Part 3. Chapter 197, Who Exactly Are You? Part 3. Shao City. Crowds of people bustled with activity on the streets. As they walked the street that seemed to stretch on, Yu Chen gently placed one of his hands at the back of her head and smiled languidly. His eyes often glanced at the young girl by his side, softening and warming. When such a handsome man appeared, it immediately attracted many people's attention. Suddenly, the man halted his steps. His gaze looked through the crowd and landed on someone wearing red clothing. Mu Er, I seem to have seen someone we know. Someone we know? Ru Yue turned her head to look at where the man was looking at and saw a red-clothed girl within the crowd before them. The girl had a remarkable appearance. Her skin was white and radiant, and her little red lips curved slightly upward. She had a lovely smile accentuated with attractive phoenix eyes that seemed to be looking at Yi Wu Chen. Her eyes lit up as she walked over. Chen, what are you doing here? Her smile was so lovely and charming, and her voice could make people go numb. How could any man resist her? Chen? Ru Yue frowned slightly as she cast a look toward Yi Wu Chen. She noticed that he didn't have any reaction to being called so cordially. This is... The girl looked at Ru Yue and was stunned for a moment before asking curiously. My fiancé, Ru Yue. Yi Wu Chen smiled. Mu Er, let me introduce her to you. This is my friend, Luo Yi. Fiancé? Luo Yi sized Ru Yue from head to toe for a few seconds before extending her hand toward her. With a lovely smile, she said, I am Chen's best friend. On the other hand, I will have to remind you to keep a firm watch over Chen. He's so outstanding that he may even be snatched up by other girls soon. Luo Yi, don't bully my fiancé, Yi Wu Chen said as he looked at Luo Yi. Luo Yi pouted, feeling wronged. I didn't bully her, just advised her. Alright, I won't blame you for your ignorance, said Yi Wu Chen with a laugh. It might be because he was meeting a friend whom he hadn't seen in a while or some other reason, but while Yi Wu Chen spoke only with Luo Yi, Ru Yue, standing by his side, seemed to have become an outsider. Little girl, you're just letting him go like this? After returning to the Shao family, Yan Jin leaped from her embrace and metamorphosed into a human before sitting on the bed. With obvious fury expressed on his handsome face, he said, Yi Wu Chen clearly swore that he would only love you in his life. What was with that woman then? He just chatted with her and left you aside. Ru Yue looked at the fuming Yan Jin. With a faint smile, she replied, they are only friends. Friends? Yan Jin snorted coldly. Would a friend call each other so cordially? It's obvious that woman wasn't friendly to you. Can it be that he's so blind and can't see that? Little girl, if that man really does something that lets you down, leave him then. With your capital, it wouldn't be hard to find other guys. Ru Yue's eyelashes slightly fluttered, but she remained quiet. Yan Jin didn't see the trace of light that flashed past her eyes. I believe in Wu Chen. But, she just believed in only Yi Wu Chen. Xiao Tianyu and his wife were in the Shao family's main hall talking when they turned their heads and saw Ru Yue walking toward them. Madame Shangyu stood up smilingly as she greeted her. Yu Er, it's perfect that you came here. I was just about to look for you for a matter. What for? Ru Yue walked to Madame Shangyu's side, a faint smile on her beautiful face. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 198, Who Exactly Are You? Part 4. Chapter 198, Who Exactly Are You? Part 4. What else could it be about if not those old fellows? Madame Shangyu raised her brows slightly. I plan to break the rules and open the sacred spirit spring for you in order to let you enter and train. Who knew that those few old fellows would have some objections? The sacred spirit spring should only be opened once every 3 years. If we were to break the rules, we would require 2 Xiantian experts. She paused for a moment before saying, the biggest objection is that this way is very unfair to others, so those few old fellows aren't willing to open the sacred spirit spring right now. I wanted to hear Yu Er's opinion. If you want to enter the sacred spirit spring, Mother will definitely find a way to send you in. Ru Yue frowned slightly. I am really interested in the sacred spirit spring, but if the Xiao family breaks the rules for me, isn't that too unreasonable? The elders' opinions aren't illogical. Madame Shang Yu had been treating her really well. She didn't want to burden her with this matter. Yu Er, there is another method. Madame Shang Yu held Ru Yue's hand and pulled her along to sit before the stage. She smiled elegantly. The Xiao family has allowed you to proclaim your ancestry. Following that, it will be the bloodline test. If your bloodline test result is extremely high, it should make those old fellows hold their tongues. Bloodline test? Ru Yue raised her brows questioningly. Let me explain. Xiao Tianyu stood up and walked to Ru Yue's side with light steps. In large families, the intensity of the bloodline is an extremely important issue. Our Xiao family chooses the family head by their bloodline. If your bloodline intensity is really high, you will possess an extremely high status in the Xiao family. There wouldn't be anyone that rejects anything you say. Of course, you are also grandfather's hope. In our Xiao family's new generation, the one who has the greatest bloodline intensity is your elder brother, Xiao Feng. His bloodline intensity has reached 80%. He didn't know if this daughter of his would exceed that brat. Glimmers of light danced in Xiao Tianyu's eyes. He was extremely curious regarding this. Alright, when will the test be held? Tomorrow. Tomorrow? Ru Yue rubbed her jaws in thought before nodding in agreement. I will head back to prepare for it then. She was also really interested in the intensity of the bloodline that she'd inherited. After leaving the main hall, Ru Yue didn't make any detours and headed straight back to her room. Who knew that once she entered, she would see Yan Jin and Yi Wuchen fighting in her room? Electricity seemed to flow from their bodies. When Yi Wuchen saw Ru Yue arrive, he smiled and said, Mu Er, you're back? Yi Wuchen. Yan Jin looked domineeringly at the man before him. I will ask you one more time, who is that girl called Luoi? I have already told you. We are just friends. Yi Wuchen frowned as he looked impatiently at Yan Jin. With a sinister light in his black eyes, he smiled slightly. If you don't believe me, then there is nothing I can do about it. Yan Jin was so angered that he tossed a punch at the wall to the side. It can't be that you didn't see how terrible that girl's attitude was toward the little girl? Yi Wuchen swept a gaze at Yan Jin, but didn't say anything. Just as Yan Jin wanted to say something, Ru Yue's calm voice came from the side. Yan Jin, please leave for a moment. Little girl? Yan Jin looked in disbelief at Ru Yue. Seeing how protective she was of this man, he felt really unhappy. With a trace of displeasure on his handsome face, he rebuked, little girl, if he doesn't clarify what happened today, I won't go out. If you find any errors, ads pop-up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 199, Who Exactly Are You? Part 5. Chapter 199, Who Exactly Are You? Part 5. Yan Jin. Ru Yue frowned slightly. She shifted her gaze to Yan Jin and repeated, please go out for a moment. Little girl. Yan Jin suppressed his anger and, with a wave of his fist, pang! He punched a hole in the wall. Following that, he snorted coldly and went outside. He slammed the door hard on his way out. Ru Yue shook her head helplessly. Yan Jin had such a childish side. She would have to explain this to him later. Mu Er, are you angry? Yi Wuchen walked lazily toward Ru Yue. He gently placed his hand on her waist. With a faint smile, he said gently, I am only friends with her. Ru Yue gave a low chuckle. It was only after a long moment before she raised her head to look at Yi Wuchen. I know. The two didn't speak for some time. Yi Wuchen focused on the young girl before him, a trace of desire slowly appearing in his eyes. It was undeniable that this girl was really beautiful. Her skin was white as jade, her appearance perfect. Under her firm and upright nose, those lips curved slightly upward, causing others to want to get intimate with her. Yi Wuchen suddenly had the impulse to take her. His large hand gently pressed against her head and his lips neared hers. Because of this, he failed to notice the iciness in the young girl's eyes. It was immovable coldness.